Welcome to HR After Dark. I'm Marcia.
And I'm Meghan. And today we're going to talk about a very hot topic in the marketplace, AI. Now,
AI, what's AI?
Yeah, well, I know, right? Who hasn't heard of it, right?
Right.
So, artificial intelligence, how it's changing the workplace, how it's changing our industry specifically, when it comes to performance management, when it comes to benefits management, recruiting, all the different things that it could encompass. It's like almost such a broad topic, you don't know where to start, right? So, diving in, thinking about how companies can get ahead of it from an HR perspective.
Yep.
What are you starting to see?
I don't think people are doing enough right now to get ahead of it. I mean, there's different boot camps out there. There's different things, but people will say, oh, I'm using AI. I just don't think they're using it to the full capacity. But yet again, I think it's also so new that we don't know what we don't know. And so I'm telling people like, hey, start your own AI task force inside your company. Have 4 or 5 people that really are into this and have them get together and have them basically send back to management, hey, these are the top things that are happening out there. It's like, okay, what's the difference between Gemini and Claude.ai? Most people would have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
But I do believe if you aren't on top of this, within 5 years, you're going to be left behind.
Right. What is, I know that we've put together an AI task force, which is great. So you have a mix of everybody on the team. And what do the meetings look like? Like, what's something easy that you can, how'd you get started with that?
Well, it was this idea that we had in regards to just getting started. Like, where do we start? And there were certain people that kept asking questions around the AI. And I actually reached out to them and saying, hey, we're going to do this task force. Would you be interested in being a part of it? And then I also assigned them like an AI expert that does all these writings out there. I would say, we're going to assign you individuals to follow to see what's happening out there, what's going on. And an interesting tidbit we found out this past week, we had another guest speaker come in, my dear friend Dan Hughes from Clarity.ai. And he was just giving us a plethora of really good tips, especially for like HR consulting. And he had said, most people don't use it as effectively as they should. And it's really about those repetition and things that make it easier and more communicative. And he goes, it was really interesting about how even Gemini is going to transform like our laptops and our workspace over the next 12 months.
Wow.
And I don't think I talk to other people, like all my friends are in their 50s, and I'll say, hey, when's the last time you used ChatGPT? Like, yeah, I haven't done that yet. I'm like,
how?
Just try it, just learn it, get involved with it, spend some extra time with it, be curious.
Yeah. Because
I really do think you're going to have to be ahead of the game. And if you're not, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah. No, I agree. And last fall, we brought in our friend Chris Carr, who, is building out his AI consulting business, Dynamics, and we trained all of our managers on it. Because the way it's changing the workplace is, you can use it for, of course, all the, the great personal things that it can do for you. But, the second that you get an email from one of your employees that is completely AI driven, it's not them. And so it's like, how do you maintain that balance of humanity, but also like incorporating AI into the mix? And how do you maintain I guess the word would be compliance around it in the workplace?
I think it's funny because I don't think we have enough guidelines around that yet. The one thing is it's learning and growing, and it's always a few months behind what's really actually today. So you have to be careful the timeline of information that's been given to you, and people don't always they think it's gospel. What you also don't want to do is put personal information out there. You don't want to put a name, you don't want to put a social security number, you don't want to put a compensation, your address, even though you can find it all out there anyway. But you got to be really careful about that, and because once they have that information, it's sort of learned how you think and how you talk. Like chat's very different than Claude. Claude's more about the writing side of the house, but it starts incorporating how you speak. It gets a little spooky after a while, but it does help. I'm not a good writer, but I am definitely a strong person financially. And so my finance stuff, my budgets are really good, but writing something is hard. So I'll ask it, hey, give me this. I need 3 sentences, make it a little bit more caring, more concerned, professional, to the point. I want to add this and this in it. And poof, it pops back exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Way better than me, saves me a ton of time, but you have to make sure you give it enough, basically, like a rule, basically, to figure out what you really need.
Yeah. I also think it's really important to have an AI policy in your handbook.
Absolutely.
I'm getting a ton of calls from current clients, but and also future clients about how in depth it needs to be.
Yeah.
And if they add it into their handbook, should they have them, sign off on the handbook all over again?
Yes.
But I do think it's really important to have that now,
Yes.
Especially if you're going to have it inside, you're going to have your employees using it in the workplace.
Yeah, anytime I update to a handbook, anytime have people sign off on it.
Okay.
And nowadays it's a lot easier because most of this stuff is done via electronically through their HRIS system. So it's really easy to incorporate. But if you have to do it by hand, don't be lazy. Do it by hand because it can backfire if you don't have that paper.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also important to make sure that you're transparent with your clients and transparent with your employees.
Oh, yeah.
If AI is being used. And I
Yeah.
know a lot of the tools that we use now, like we use HubSpot as our CRM, and they
Right.
have an AI, tool in there, and that we incorporate in.
Green?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's actually another one of our, aren't you proud? Look at all
I'm
these
very
marketing
proud,
tools that we're
yes.
using. No, that's another one. HubSpot has its own.
Yes.
And so we have all these, awesome tools. And I think it's important that make sure, you're, from a trust standpoint, you're making sure that your clients and your employees know.
Yeah,
that you're
we're trying to
using
do
it.
that with our intake calls, and I'm having conversations with my TA team in particular to make sure that, hey, here's our conversation, it's being recorded. And it's funny now because like when I get on a Zoom right now, no matter what, I have somebody on there, whether it be Otter or Fireflies, somebody's already taken notes. And so it's already on there, but I do think it helps put a summary together so that when like, hey, here's our kickoff. This is what we talked about. Could you just confirm we talked about this?
Yeah.
And this way we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Because so many times we're into it a month later and they'll say, I never said that. And now it's good documentation. Said, no, it's right here. You did say that.
Yeah. I know that AI is having a big impact on recruiting, the
Yep.
whole full cycle recruiting process.
Yes.
Where do you see that going? Because right now I see it as a tool to help candidates get through the pipeline quicker.
Yeah.
And sourcing efforts. Where do you see this going in terms of recruiting? Like, is this taking jobs? Where are we going here?
I think it's always going to be that open-ended question. Is it going to take my job away? Listen, I think recruiting is always going to need people. I don't
too.
care what you do. Now,
Totally
it's going to
agree.
help you save time in regards to sourcing and pulling resumes and getting it going for you. And the more queries you give it, it's going to break it down. So instead of seeing 300 resumes, it's like, I need these 3 things. It's going to move it. But there's always still a chance of missing that right opportunity of a candidate in there because maybe that one word wasn't there, but that's a phenomenal candidate. And so you got to be careful what you rely on.
I agree.
I also think there's a lot of bias out there too because that system's only going to pick up that certain area or demographics and all too. And there could be that diamond in the rough that's in there. So you got to be really careful and cautious about relying too much on it.
For sure.
But I also know it's still a people side. So when you interview, and I'm seeing this a lot more, especially I heard on the medical field, they had said they had this avatar person asking them questions and getting it back. And I'm like, how do you attract people if you don't really have that intimate communication? And if we're telling people out there that networking is the best way to get jobs and having that connection, but yet the interviewing process is cold as ice, there's a disconnect there. We got to fix that.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And I think there's some things that AI won't be able to do.
Nope.
And so there's that authenticity that will be missing.
Yep.
And then there's biases, right?
Oh.
So it's like there's it's hard to interpret that based on the tools that you're using.
I think sometimes it enhances more fear than it should. I mean, when ATMs came out, the biggest fear was no more bank tellers. We're going to get rid of bank tellers, no more banks. We have more banks today than we did before ATMs basically were brought out into the open.
Yeah.
And so to me, I'm like, I actually think we have more roles open because of ATMs. So it's like we can't always think it's going to be the message of everything. Now, is it getting smarter, AI? AI is getting massively, it's going to be smarter than us by 2030.
And so fast, too.
If not already.
Right.
And computation's quicker and all too, but you have to be careful. You're still going to need a people interaction. You just are. We learned from COVID, we're social interactions. We need people around us and talk to people.
Yeah.
And even like have one-on-ones.
Yeah.
They're coming back into the office. They're not willingly doing that, but I think they're coming back into the office. But I think people are realizing why it's so important to have that communication and have that social interaction. AI can never do that. They'll say avatars are out there, and you're going to see a lot of people buy like robots and all for like a friend and someone to walk to and all, but they're never really going to hold your hand. They're never going to basically make you feel like you really listened to me today.
Yeah, and that's where HR has its place. Thinking about recruiting is one thing and how it can make things more efficient.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But with HR, the tools that I think about, let's talk about performance management for a second. There could be so many tools to help in that.
Sure.
But those development conversations need to be with a person.
Oh, it does. But here's the funny part. That person is still looking for recognition from their manager and their team. So having that written note saying, hey, great job, will still go a lot further than having basically a survey basically about them or a 360, here we going. It's that having that communication of eye-to-eye contact, having maybe coffee with them and saying, what's going well, what's not going well, here's how I can help you, I care about you. That will never be replaced.
Yeah.
And, it's unfortunate because everybody's going to make it quicker, faster. We have these great systems. We are. But, they said that about retained search like 30 years ago when I first got in this business. Like, it's going to be a dying age. It's going to be dying. You won't need retained. Retained search is stronger now than it ever has been before. Yeah. It's not going away anytime soon.
Why they think that was going away?
It was going to go away because of technology and computers. And we won't need it. And it's going to be faster to find resumes. And we have all these tools to do all that. No. If anything, I think it's gotten harder for recruiting because to get those skills of individual, it's harder to find. Yeah, and I find them more by having communication and networking than I do online.
Yeah. I even think the process could be longer.
Oh, yeah.
Like thinking about pulling them out of places too.
Yeah.
So when it comes to other HR pieces, where do you see AI aiding in the HR world, at least?
Oh, so many sides. Your performance management, or you're even creating the performance management stuff, talking about your analysis and all too, that your census and all your data behind all that, your percentages, your bonus information, your handbooks updates and all your policy updates, and comparing and contrasting between the two and what's happening with laws out there. I mean, the opportunities are endless.
Yeah.
It's all those paperwork and process and repetition stuff and things that have to be out there. That's all can be done that way.
Yep.
The hard part that it cannot replace is the interaction with somebody. And it's having that one-on-one communication and basically having a true conversation.
Yeah. What I think about automatically when we talk about this topic is my next story. So thinking about your career planning and what you can do as an employee or an employer, and having a tool to be able to let people create their own narrative on what they're doing next. So, thinking about, Ginny's organization, that is going to be a major driver because people want to get paid and people want flexibility. But what they also want is to know where they're going next or what could be next for them. So when I hear a lot of people talking about career mapping, and so this tool could be a phenomenal opportunity.
MyNextStory.com is a wonderful tool to help companies in regards to their employees and their career mapping. And they actually have coaches on there to help walk them through and answer kind of questions and all. It's really good. But then they also have to talk to their managers about, hey, how can I get to that next level? And you can actually take courses in there to say, I can take this next course to get here and get here. And that's great. And I think for mid-sized to bigger companies, it's the perfect tool out there. I think for the smaller companies, because there's a cost involved, it's a little bit harder, but it's getting there.
Yeah. I think there's always a, it's a different place in the work, in our workspace now when we think about what people actually want.
Oh, yeah.
And I think if you don't ask them, then you're failing as a company because, what you might think your entire team wants, they may not even know is available.
But I think that the employee thinking is changing. Yeah. I think they want purpose. I think that they do want to stay longer. I think they want to see what's my career ladder, like you said, but also I want to be known and recognized for my work. Yeah. One of the problems is the old days, we waited a long time to get there. And today, unfortunately, they want to and every year they want to move up another rank. And there's a disconnect. We have 5 generations in the workforce. We're not on the same page. We might not be there for a couple of years. I do think COVID has definitely pushed things around a little bit, but I do think more and more are going to go back to work. I think hybrid is still here, but it's slowly fading.
I agree.
And I think over next 10 years, it's going to go a little bit more fading. people getting together. But I think if companies don't have their act together with HR, with performance management, with making sure they understand what that looks like to move up, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. Bringing it back into AI, what can organizations do to protect themselves from an HR perspective if they want to get ahead? Like my brain is saying, okay, we're going to hire an AI consulting company, and here are like the next best steps. What do you see as an owner?
I personally think have an AI task force.
Yeah.
Have 3 or 4 people responsible who basically come back to you as the leader and saying, this is what's happening out there, what's going on. Dan mentioned really interesting. He's like, where do you get all the information from? He said, honestly, he goes, right now, the best source on social media is X, AKA Twitter. He goes, I get all my updates right now, and X is the best platform right now that's showing me what's happening around the AI. And he also gave us like all these people to follow on X to stay on top of the curve, because it could be overwhelming on YouTube and things like that. But I like a quick, fast update, and that's been really helpful to us. So you got to have a task force. You got to have some kind of training for your own team. You have to make sure that they, don't be afraid to try new things. Like we just did that with sales and marketing. I'm about to do it in talent acquisition, in regards to our notes and all. You got to be not afraid to do that. Don't be afraid of what's out there.
Yeah, and it takes time. I mean, be a change agent for your company, because it takes time. You try something once, and it's like going to feel uncomfortable, out of your comfort zone. So you got to try a couple different things.
Yeah.
And I use it for a lot of my writing. I use it for a lot of my PowerPoint decks.
Yeah, right.
I use Gamma as one of my favorite tools, and thinking about how I can, cut that process in half, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And so I feel like we've just tried to just see what works and throw something at the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah, but so many companies like our size don't even know what Gamma is.
Yeah.
Haven't even tried ChatGPT. And it kills me, even in my age group of people, when I say, well, did you try talking to chat of getting your competitors and asking this and this and this? They're like, well, no, but I'll get to that. And then a week later, like, did you try that? Yeah. And they're like, no. And it's not the fact that they don't know what they don't know. They haven't tried it, and they're afraid of trying it, too. And they don't really know that piece. That's the piece. If we can educate our people not to be so afraid of it, I think we'll learn a lot more stuff out there. Yeah. Because it's really cool to be engaged like that. And the amount of stuff they can bring to your company, the ideas are just flowing. Because in 1 year from now, we're going to have so much even more information. I mean, think about it. Gamma 6 months ago, I didn't know about, ChatGPT a year ago, well, maybe 2 years ago. But it was just really, it's interesting to see how far we're going with this.
Yeah, and good for us for thinking ahead.
We should always be thinking ahead.
That's
our job.
Yeah. AI is here to stay, obviously, and it's only going to grow in terms of the HR space. So is there anything else you think that would be helpful for our listeners to think about in the workplace specifically? Yeah,
just like definitely embrace it, but also be careful of it, because you have to keep in mind there's a lot of bias involved with it, and there's a lot of stuff it's still learning. It's still growing from all the stuff that's going out there. Right. Just don't make sure it's like you're relying on it. For example, lawyers can't use it, right? And you want to make sure that, just making sure that information you're putting out there is true and accurate. Because even some of the data is really old. So you want to make sure, like, when you see the dates of that data, it was back in 19, I would say, or 2012, sorry. 2022 is right now the average that comes out the date. Like that's not 2025.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you have all that. But, just be real. But don't rely on everything yet. You know what I mean? Because I do believe, there's creativity with our own people that we don't tap into enough.
For sure.
I don't want us to rely on that so much, because we're not going to tap
agree.
into our own creativity.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the beauty of being a private business too, is like having the autonomy to make build things, really.
Well, we have Innovation Day.
Yeah.
We have Innovation Day twice a year where we get together with our team. We get the people that are not as busy. I'm like, all right, let's talk 4 hours about what are the things we aren't doing that you think we could be doing. Yep. And no answer is stupid. Yeah. And we just put a whole board together and write out about 50 ideas. And then we really focus on 5 that we think is going to be an impact on our company. Yeah. And it's very empowering when they see basically put to light of things I never had thought of before. But you have to keep your team energized, innovative, and creative.
Yeah, excited to be a part of something too, because that's another major reason why people work where they do, is like they feel connected to what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so thinking about how you can tie that in, I think the biggest thing for me is making sure it's not going to replace the things that we can do.
Right.
it's going to aid in the efficiency, and it 100% of it
100%.
already is. But, I had a potential client talk to me about what he wanted in an HR person. He's like, I don't want any water cooler talk. And I'm like, listen, there's a difference between water cooler talk and having a connection with your teammates. And they need someone to talk to. It doesn't have to be a setup for I'm here to just take complaints, but there needs to be somebody, whether it's internal or outsourced to a business like ours, you need to be able to have that direct interaction. It's never going to take it away.
Interesting
Yeah, isn't that
Yeah.
interesting? I don't want any water cooler talk. I was like, okay, well, that's going to be a problem. So,
Yeah. What kind of culture is there?
Yeah, exactly. And so, people call when it's too late
Yeah.
a lot. But a lot of our CEOs call because they want to be better.
Oh, yeah.
But some call when they were in a situation like that. So.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I think
Yeah.
our HR and AI, our task force is really moving and grooving, and they're
awesome.
really embracing it and all too. And we're excited to teach it to our team next week as well. But
Yeah.
I think you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Just put a stake in the ground and get moving, because it's
Don't be
coming
scared.
whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and set up parameters with your IT provider to make sure everything is secure. I
Yes.
think that's really important too.
Yeah, we have
So,
massive security.
Yeah,
in
big
ours, so.
security around it. So this was great. This was an awesome conversation. I think this is going to be a quarterly conversation.
Yep.
We're going to have lots to talk about.
But we should talk about next time about which ones to go after. There's Grok, there's Claude AI, there's all these new ones that are popping up. So
Yeah.
maybe we should have one about in HR, some of the best AI tools that we're using to help them out with,
Yeah.
Like HubSpot, you're using Grain, right?
No, there's two separate ones. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so HubSpot has
Yep.
it too. So we're trying to use all that stuff to be more efficient. And
Yep.
it seems to be helping.
Yeah,
Pretty
no,
cool.
That's great, and I think that we can continue to be an advocate.
Yeah.
Of why AI is important.
Yes.
In our space,
Right.
in the workplace.
But I will never advocate to take the place of a person.
No,
Never.
you need water cooler talk.
You do. Watermelon.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today on HR After Dark. I'm Megan,
I'm Marcia.
and we will see you next time.
Take care.